Our pastor is Pastor Mike. Hey everybody. Thank you, Senator. We're gonna study out of the book of Nehemiah today. Nehemiah is in the Old Testament, so if you have your Bible or your phone, you can just click Nehemiah. But if you're actually working out of the Bible, go to like the middle of the Bible, Psalms, and then take a left turn, and you'll find it. It's a small book, and we're going to look at chapter 1 of Nehemiah. So I want to ask you a question before I get started tonight. Have you ever been burdened for something? I'm not talking about just something little, something that maybe you hoped happens, not like, oh, I'm hoping I have a safe trip home. But I'm talking about burdened. I'm talking about you're fighting maybe for a marriage, or you're fighting for a child that has gone wayward. or you're fighting for someone maybe who's dying, and you're praying for them nonstop, but you have a burden for someone or something. And that's what we're going to look at tonight in Nehemiah. Now let me give you a little context, and I'm going to try to do this as best I can, but you should have your Bible open, because I'm just telling you this. Pastor Dudley says this too. You should never believe anybody unless they get it out of the Bible. So I could just make something up over here, and if none of you look at the Bible, you'd be like, oh, that's great. No, look at your Bible so that you know that I'm right, or know that God's right. So in this context, you have to know that in the Old Testament, the Jewish people, they kept messing up, right? And God would get mad, and he would smite them, and someone would come and destroy them, and then some leader would rise up in the Jewish faith in Israel and lead them, and he would be a godly man, and everything would be right for a while. And then 100 years later, they'd mess up again. And finally, God had enough, and he exiled them all out of Israel. They were all out of the promised land. And so Jerusalem literally fell to rubble. Well, they were scattered all over the place. And we find Nehemiah here, and he is the cupbearer, or the wine taster, it depends what translation of the Bible you have, for the most powerful man in the world at this time, a guy named Artaxerxes, who is the king of Persia. He is not a good guy. He's a mean guy. He has killed a lot of people. He's invaded a lot of land. And literally at this time, most of that area was ruled by him. And here's this Jewish guy named Nehemiah, who has risen in the ranks out of trust and out of hard work to his enemy's cupbearer, to the cupbearer of the king. And that's where we're going to pick up this story. So in the beginning of chapter 1, let me open up my Bible. I'll put my old man glasses on. It says this: in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Susa was the capital city of Persia. It says, Hanani, one of my brothers, so a fellow guy, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant. So he's asking, this is what Nehemiah is asking. He says, who's left in Jerusalem? Which one of us brothers is left in Jerusalem? And the guy said, and survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. And they said to me these words: those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. Here's what I want you to see. Verse 4 is what we're really going to talk about tonight. He says, Nehemiah says, when I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. So here's what happens. He finds out that his city is wrecked. It's dead. The walls are coming down. It is just a total mess. And this guy, Nehemiah, is really, really upset. To the point that it says he is super, super burdened. And he actually sits down when he hears this news and he cries. And it says, for some days, not like an hour or two, but for some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven because he was so upset. So I want you to know that tonight, as we look at this, if you, like most humans, have something that you're burdened for, and for everyone in here it could be something different. But if you have something you're burdened for, Nehemiah, really God through Nehemiah, is giving you a recipe here of how to get through that burden. How possibly God could even solve the burden. And so I'm going to share the rest of the story of what really, really happens when he begins to weep, fast, mourn, and pray. I want to ask you first if you've ever done any of those 4 things. Have you ever just wept for a situation? You probably have. Maybe at a funeral. Again, maybe something's gone wrong in your life. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe something really bad and you just cried, right? And then there could be that time where you've decided to actually fast. Has anybody actually fasted in here? I actually like to fast in a weird way. In a weird way. I like it. Because I see things happen. I see what God does when you actually fast. And so that's something you can do. Do you know that you can fast more things than just food? Because a lot of people are like, I'm not giving up food. I mean, it smells good in here tonight, right? A lot of people just say, I can't do that. What about fasting social media? Has anybody ever thought about doing that? That might be harder than food nowadays, right? Yeah. You know, I'm going to give up Instagram. Ooh, I'd rather give up a cheeseburger than Instagram. And then it says that he mourned. You ever been through a state of mourning? I mean, where it hurts deep in your soul, where your heart hurts, where you can't sleep at night, where you're literally throwing up because everything hurts so bad. And in your mind, you literally think you might not get through it. So I want to set the stage because this is how he feels about his city, his hometown that is almost 600 miles away from him that he was kicked out of. He's ripped apart, that it's in shambles. And so he decides through this prayer and fasting and weeping and mourning that God's going to give him an answer. And he starts developing this plan in his head. And he says, you know what? I got to get right here first. I got to get right with myself. You ever notice that when you're having trouble with something and we're talking about this and maybe something big's going on in your life and you're going to God for prayer and you feel like there's just no answer, like it's silent? I just want to tell you, it's not generally God being silent because he's mad at you. He may just be waiting for you to clear something up that you need to clear up. Maybe it's a confession. Maybe it's just a hard issue. Maybe you haven't been reading your Bible. Maybe you haven't visited him for a while. You know, I wouldn't just walk into a friend's house that I hadn't talked to for 2 years and say, you know what, I need to borrow your house, I need to borrow your car, and if you could give me $10,000, that would help. Right? That would just be an uncomfortable conversation. But if I was constantly with a friend, and I was talking to him every day, we were texting partners, and we were maybe accountability partners, and we did things, and I had something really hard come in my life, and I went in and asked him for something, what do you think he would say if he was a true friend? He would say yes. And so a lot of times when we're doing this and we feel like God is silent, it's because we haven't cleaned up our side of the street yet. And so that's what Nehemiah decides to do here in verse 5. He says then, Lord, the God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments. I'm just telling you right now, it's always good to open up with God in praise. And that's what he's doing. He's recognizing here in this prayer that God is the Lord. He is the creator of all things. He is the one who made the stars and the moon and all the pretty mountains. He is the one who made us. And so Nehemiah is just recognizing him that right away. He's just saying, I know who you are. It says, let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer your servant is praying before you day and night for your servants, the people of Israel. Again, I want to be very clear here. Nehemiah knows that something big needs to happen. And it already says as he's praying to God that he's already praying this same prayer day and night. See, I think sometimes we don't petition hard enough with God. We don't ask God to really do anything. We kind of hint to God. God, I could really use help in this situation. Thanks, let me know how it works out. Right? But we don't get on our knees. We don't fall on our knees. We don't weep. We don't pray. We don't mourn. We don't fast. We don't do anything other than maybe just shoot him a direct message. Hey, need help here. And Nehemiah is saying, no, you can't do that. I'm doing this day and night. I'm petitioning God to fix my city of Jerusalem. He says, I confess the sins we Israelites, including myself and my father's family, have committed against you. Good confession. Confession is good for the soul, right? Can I just tell you something? I know you guys all know this, but you know God knows everything you do anyway? Like, I feel like sometimes we're trying to keep things secret from Him. We're like, well, He didn't see me do that. I'm just telling you, He did. The really bad things, and He sees the really good things. And you know what's the greatest thing about our God? Is that despite all of that, He still loves you. He knows that you're messing up, and He just wants you to go, I don't want to mess up anymore. That's all He wants you to say. Can you imagine if you just made that prayer right there? God, forgive me for whatever it is you're doing, or whatever it is I'm doing. And I don't want to do it anymore. Do you know how happy He would be? But we try to keep secrets from God. And I just want to remind you tonight, He has seen it all. He knows everything. It's a little bit scary, right? That's why I love, I think it's actually Pastor Dudley that says, you should walk around with a Bible in your hand, because it's hard to do bad things when you have a Bible in your hand. Right? Pretty hard to look at porn if you got a Bible in your hand. Pretty hard to cuss someone out if you have a Bible in your hand. Pretty hard to yell at someone. Pretty hard to punch somebody. You try to do all that with a Bible in your hand, you pretty much don't. So instead of putting it on your phone, maybe carry one of these. And then you won't do some of that stuff. But he says, I am confessing for my father's, for the Israelites, including myself, and my father's family. So he goes, current, myself, all these people, and the people that came before me. God, I realize we messed this up. Please, please, please forgive us. It says, we have acted very wickedly toward you. We have not obeyed the commands, decrees, and laws you have gave your servant Moses. He says, this is why we got exiled. This is why we got kicked out right here. Because we didn't do any of this thing right. You told us what to do. You gave us the laws. You gave us leaders. You gave us godly wisdom, and we didn't do it. We didn't do it. You know, I was reading this week, who's the wisest person in the Bible? Solomon, right? So I was reading this week about Solomon. I'm reading through maybe Ecclesiastes. And you know what I never realized about Solomon? Now, I have a master's degree. I should know most things in the Bible. I didn't realize that at the end, although Solomon was the wisest man ever, right? You know what he ended up doing at the end of his life? We had like 700 wives. That's pretty difficult. I've got one. And I think I'd probably drive her nuts. I couldn't imagine having 700. But all of those 700 wives, I think like 400 of them came from places that God had forbid them to marry, because they were worshiping other gods. And he ended up putting an idol, I think, on the Mount of Olives towards the end of his life that had nothing to do with God. Wisest man in the Bible. But yet when you lose contact and you lose realism, you can fall. How many times does the righteous man fall, does it say in Proverbs 24:16, I think? 7 times. And he gets up. The righteous man falls 7 times and gets back up. You know who stays on the ground, it says? The wicked man. The wicked man never gets up. He gets knocked out and doesn't get up. Right? He's a TKO. No, just a KO. He's just knocked out. But the righteous man gets up every time. He says, remember the instruction you gave your servant Moses. So he's reminding God. I always think that's funny when you remind God. You guys ever do that? Like, hey, God, remember. Yes, he remembers. He knows everything. You don't have to remind him, but Nehemiah reminds him here, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. And this is what happened. But if you return to me, here's the golden part. Nehemiah says, remember, you said if we return to you and obey my commands, then even your exiled people are at the farthest horizon. So the people that are farthest away, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. So he reminds him, he said, God, remember you said, if we got our act together, and we started worshiping you, and we started obeying the laws, and we started that you would bring us all back together as the chosen people, as a nation. So he's reminding him there. And he says, there are your servants and your people whom you redeemed by your great strength and your mighty hand. I like it again. These are your people, God. Don't bail on them. Lord, let your ear be attentive to this prayer your servant, and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. So let me set the tone for you. He's just said this prayer of confession to God. And he knows that he has to walk into the most powerful man in the world. The biggest thing I can say is it's probably like walking into Trump's office. Whether you like Trump or not. It's like walking into Trump's office, and let's just say he didn't care about Christians at all, and you said to him, I need to go rebuild this church because it's everything, da 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 da. And he had the ability, Artaxerxes had the ability to just kill him. If that was offensive, he was just going to kill him. And so Nehemiah knew that. That's part of this prayer. He's like, dude, don't let me die. I just want to get this request through. So he is praying himself up by fasting, by weeping, by mourning, and by praying, so that he can go have this big ask. Right? Have you ever had to go ask for something really big from someone? Guys, maybe it was when you asked your wife to marry. Right? That was scary for me. Like, I love my wife. We're 25 years married this August. That's a long time. But I can remember 26 years ago thinking about asking her to marry me. Woo, that was scary. Right? I had to go talk to her dad. And I didn't have Jesus in my life back then. Like, could you imagine? Like, if I'd at least been able to pray about it. I just had to wing it. I was like, hey, you're beautiful. Will you marry me? Blah, blah, blah. And she luckily said yes. But I don't know what it is in your life. But maybe you've had to go ask for a very hard question. But something was burdening you enough to make you have to go do it. And so you decide you're going to go do it. So here's Nehemiah. He's going to go ask this guy, and he has a chance to die by doing it. So he's going to walk into Artaxerxes' tasting room, or his part of the palace, and he's trying to figure out, God, give me a minute here where I'm going to be able to speak my mind. And I want to show you what happens, because it is the coolest thing ever. I think it is a testimony to what you can do through prayer and what God will do through you if you have a humble heart and you're really burdened, and it's in his will. Chapter 2, it says, in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine, that's Nehemiah, and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before. So he's saying, I've never shown him sadness. I've done my job. I've done a great job. And I've just come in every day and I've served this king. He said, so the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of the heart. So this is kind of an awesome thing, because he has done such a good job and built such a relationship with the most powerful man in the world, that the most powerful man in the world looks at him and says, what's wrong with you? You're not sick. So what's wrong with you? It can only be something that's in your heart. And so that tells me that just like Joseph or Moses or some of these other guys that were sent places, but they ended up working their way up through being servants to places of leadership that are in enemies' hands, that Nehemiah has done the same thing. He has a relationship with the most powerful man in the world. And here's what he says. He says, I was very much afraid, because he knows this could be the end of life. But I said to the king, may the king live forever. Again, always compliment first, right? Why should my face not look so sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire? And here's the key. The king says, what is it that you want? He's now got the king's attention, and he knows he's not going to die. Okay? And I love this next thing. Because what does he say? He says, then I prayed to the God of heaven and I answered the king. You ever done that? You're getting ready to walk into that tough meeting, whatever it is, or a tough situation, and you do a real quick 6-second prayer. You're like, oh God, get me through this. God, let me not mess this up. Okay, God, give me strength, give me courage, right? Something, whatever it is, and you just shoot a 6-second prayer to get you through that situation. If you don't do that, you should do that. I am the king of 6-second prayers. My boys, I have a 20-year-old boy and an 18-year-old boy. My 20-year-old boy is at Bible college. He's going to be a preacher. And I've taught him just 6-second prayers that we talk about at our house all the time. Can I just tell you something? Can I tell you something? We do 6-second prayers for the senator 5 times a day. We just walk by and we go, hey, 6-second prayer. And we go, okay, let the senator have a great training session today and let his life be an example to others. We always pray for the training. We always pray for the evangelism. Right? It's a two-pronged thing. Because I love watching Manny's fights. I love watching the Senators' fights. But my heart is that you would all come to Christ. That's what it really is. It's truly what it is. And so we do 6-second prayers. You should do if you stink at praying, a lot of people stink at praying. Some people aren't good at it. Because you're not sure what to say. Do a 6-second prayer. God already knows what's on your heart anyway. Just look at it. It's just whatever you're looking at. You know, we were driving by a car accident on the 405. We're like, God be with the people that are in that car accident and bless them and let them be healed. 6-second prayer. I didn't have to do a 2-minute prayer. I didn't have to do anything crazy. I literally just shot a 6-second prayer. So that's for free tonight. Do 6-second prayers. So that's what Nehemiah does here. He does a 6-second prayer. He says, then I prayed to the God of heaven and I answered the king. If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. Then the king, with the queen sitting beside me, asked me, how long will your journey take? How great do you think he felt right there? He knew he got the answer. He was like, oh, I get to go. I get to go do something about my city. And when will you get back? That's what the king asked him. How long will the journey take and when will you get back? So he was good with him going, but he was a good worker. He wanted him to come back. You got that, right? And he says, it pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. Now, I'm not going to, because we don't have a ton of time, I'm not going to go into the rest of this, but I am going to tell you a couple really great things that happened because of this prayer. You ever get really strong? Like the senator's in the middle of training right now. He gets stronger. He's stronger than he was a month ago. Well, the same thing happens when you have faith. And you trust faith, and then you see it work. Right? You take the punch, and you realize, ooh, I can do that. Right? And so he's in the middle of asking. All he went in to ask the most powerful man in the world is, can I go? He gets a yes, and he goes, okay. And he says another 6-second prayer. He's like, God, should I ask for more? And God goes, go for it. And he goes, okay, so I'm going to go. He goes, but hey, would it also please you to send some troops with me so that I'm safe on my 600-mile trip to Judah? And the guy goes, and Xerxes says, yeah, I'll do it. So he now gets a whole army to go with him to protect him. And I love this because Nehemiah goes, hey, okay, I'm 2 for 2. Hey, so there's a guy that owns land up in Lebanon that makes these great trees that would be great for my city. Do you think you could write a letter requesting him to give me all the wood for this thing too? And Xerxes goes, yep. So he now gets to go. He gets the wood he needs. He gets the army to take him across, and then he gets another letter. He asks for one more thing for safe passage. So he was scared to death, but he fasted, he wept, he mourned, and he prayed, and then he got the courage to go in and talk to the most powerful man in the world that could kill him, and the guy doesn't kill him. In fact, he does the opposite of that. He gives him everything that he needed and more. And he ends up going back to this city, and I think Nehemiah has 12 or 13 chapters, and you should just read them. It's a short book. And he goes back to this city, and he rebuilds the wall. He gathers the people in one of the greatest leadership feats. He rebuilds the wall in like 48 days or 52 days. I can't get a bathroom recreated in my bathroom or in my house for like less than three months, and he gets an entire wall around a city built in like 50 days because of great leadership, but because of God's will for him to go back and do this. And so I ask you again, is there something you're burdened for that you're willing to weep, pray, fast, and mourn? Because here's what I believe. I believe God will show up in a mighty way if you will do those things. I'm going to tell you about the coolest thing that's happened to me in the last 2 years. Most of you know, because I've talked before, I used to be a college basketball coach. And I think I might even mentioned this kid before, but I had a former player of mine 7 years ago, got in a motorcycle accident and has been in a coma for the last 7 years. And I've pastored his mom through it, and his mom is like the best prayer warrior ever. And she's been through everything. And this guy's named Joseph. Joseph Frazier. He's not a boxer though, he's a basketball player. And he's in this coma for 7 years. And 2 years ago, at Christmas time, his mom calls me. And she goes, Pastor Mike, can I have a meeting with you, please? And I thought, yeah, this might not be good, but yes, I'll have a meeting with you. And if you're a mom in here, you'll know what I'm talking about. So her only son is laying in a coma, and she calls me in, and my wife's a prayer warrior. And she says, Pastor Mike, Molly, she goes, I've decided, because Joseph had gotten pneumonia, that we're gonna take him off life support. We feel like there's been no change really, and we feel like, and this is what she said, she goes, I'm burdened that I'm keeping God from doing a miracle by keeping him on life support. And she said, what do you think, Pastor? And I think, and I'm just going to be honest because I'm transparent, I think I got scared. I said, so what are we going to do? And she goes, I want to take him off life support next week. And she goes, he's either going to be with God or God's going to show up here and he's going to be okay. And I said, okay. She goes, will you meet with the doctors with me? Will you meet with his father who lived in a separate time? Will you meet with his friends? Because they don't all know Jesus. She goes, but we need a healing here. We need this to happen. And I said, let's do it. So that was on December 19th, 2017. We had this meeting. We met with the doctors who were going to come in and take him off life support. They explained it to us. They said, so we'll take this off. And they said, we actually took him off life support for a couple hours each day to just see how long it's going to take for him to die. And they said, her name's Ty. They said, Ty, Joseph won't live longer than about 3 to 5 minutes without life support. She goes, so we'll have a quiet room. The pastor can be in there, and we're gonna lead through this. And she had heard me talk about Nehemiah, and we left that meeting, and she said, we need to pray, we need to fast, we need to mourn. And she goes, I'll cover the weeping. And I said, okay, let's do it. For 3 days, we did nothing. We ate nothing. We just called upon God. And I kept saying the same thing. I kept saying, God, either get him up and make him walk, or take him up there and let him walk. But let's do this. And I got really, really burdened, and his mom was burdened. And I tell his mom, Ty, all the time, if it was 2,000 years ago, there'd be a book of Bible named Ty, because she has been through it with her son. No money, nothing. She's just trying to make it happen. My wife actually built a wing on the house for her, because my wife's a physical therapist, so that Joseph wouldn't have to live anywhere but home. They shower him, and he's got care. She lives very modestly just to keep him alive. So we just prayed. And I'm talking about on our knees praying. I'm talking about the kind of praying where you are really, really praying for something. And we just kept saying the same thing over and over. And the night before we were going to take him off life support, and Joseph hadn't really moved much more than maybe this. maybe moving his head a little bit in 5 or 6 years. The night before, it was just me and Joseph in the room, and I'm yelling at Joseph because I used to coach Joseph, so I wasn't being Pastor Mike, I was being Coach Mike. And I said, dude, you need to get up. I said, you need to get up, dude. Enough's enough. That's probably not very nice. You probably don't want me next to you if you're dying. And I said, it's time, Joseph. And his arm flinched like that, and it made me jump. I laughed because I thought, oh, they're going to find a dead pastor, but he's going to be alive because it scared me to death. And I was by myself, and I was like looking around, and I went and got the nurse because he had moved all his stuff, and I was like, whoa. And she came in, and I kind of assumed maybe it happened a lot. I'm not at the house a lot. I thought maybe he twitched, like you twitch when you're asleep. And I said, something to Ty. She got back about a half hour later, and I said, she goes, how's he doing? Anything happened? And I said, well, besides the fact that he almost jumped out of bed with a twitch. She goes, what? She goes, he hasn't done anything like that. And I was like, ooh. I said, maybe we're on to something here. And I spent the next 12 hours just screaming at Joseph, Joseph, you got to get up. You got to get up. And we had a church service just about like this in the intensive care the next morning because they were going to pull the plug, take him off of life support at 9 a.m. And there was 60 of his friends. They were all young adults in there. Half of them didn't know Jesus. They're trying to figure out why we're so calm. And I've got a piece. His mom's got a piece. And we're just trying to figure out what's this going to look like. I'm dealing with the doctors. I'm helping. I got young adults crying over on the side. And I'm trying to comfort them. And I'm trying to explain to them that Jesus is in control. I'm trying to explain to them that Joseph's going to be with Jesus. And this is all going to be great. And My wife, prayer warrior, is with Ty. And I see him. And they're on the floor like this. And they're on the bed, holding on to Joseph's legs, and they got their heads down, and they're just praying. And I mean like burdened praying. And there's a puddle of tears from his mom right on the floor. And my wife's got a hold of her, and they're just praying. And we let people come in and say a final goodbye. And I got to be honest, I thought it was a final goodbye. I did. 9 o'clock came. Me, my wife, the mom, Ty, she's on her knees with my wife. Joseph laying there. The dad and like 2 friends are in the room, and the doctors come in. They all got their yellow coats on. They come in and they start sedating him, and they're this, that, the other. And I'm crying. And I'm just praying. I kept going, Joseph, get up or go to heaven. You got a choice. And he was a basketball player. I kept saying, you need an 8-0 run right now, kid. You need an 8-0 run right now. You need to score 8 points in a row right now, or you're going to go to heaven. And that's a pretty good deal. Like, there's a no lose here for you, Joseph. 9 o'clock, all the machines go off. The doctors walk out quietly. It's dark. We had a couple candles in there. Joseph just laying there. And all you do in this situation, I've had to do it several times as a pastor, is you watch the machine. So I'm watching the machines because it's checking his heart rate. And there was a dip almost right away, and I was like, here we go. And human nature kicked in. I just kept saying, okay, I got to be strong for these people. I got to be the strong one, right? Because I'm the pastor. That stinks today. Because he's my friend too. And I'm sitting there. Everything drops, and I'm like, 3 minutes. They were right. And I start praying louder, and Ty, his mom is just like this. And she's just holding on to his legs, like moms do. Like 5 minutes. I still keep looking up at the machine. Still a heartbeat. Like, all right. Still praying. Like 30 minutes. And I look up. And I'm looking at my wife now, because like I said, she works in a hospital. I'm looking at her like, what are we doing here? And she just kept praying. 40 minutes. Nothing changes. Breathing on his own. I'm going, what are you doing, God? What are you doing? 1 hour. 2 hours pass. And we're all just still sitting there. His mom and my wife have not left their knees yet. They had to have bruises on their knees. It wasn't this carpet. It was that hard stuff. 2 hours straight. I'd have to have a knee replacement. My wife looks over at me and she goes, "You realize he's stable, right?" I said, "What?" She goes, "His heart rate's better than yours right now." I said, "Okay, what does that mean?" She goes, "I think he did it." I was like, "What?" And I walked out to the waiting room and all those kids are in there, not kids, young adults, and they're waiting for me to tell them that he's dead. And they're crying and they were like looking at me, and I said, "He's alive." I stayed all night. He kept breathing. And I didn't know what to do. I've never experienced that as a pastor. I'm like, I don't know what to say or do here. I got home. I finally went home for a couple hours sleep. And I looked at my wife and I said, "What do we do?" And she goes, "Tell him to take him home." I said, "Take him home? He was just going to be dead 12 hours ago." She goes, "Tell him to take him home." So I go to the hospital. And his mom comes walking in and she sits down next to me, and I think this is going to be a really long conversation. And I said, she goes, "Pastor Mike, what do we do?" And I said, "Well, we trusted God and he's laying there." I said, "Molly thinks you should just take him home." She goes, "Good idea." And she just got up. And she went and we checked him out of the hospital. 2 years later, he's still alive. He's never been on life support. And here's the cool thing. Six of his caretakers have come to Christ because of his story of survival. And I don't know what God's going to do with him. He still can't talk. He's still not riding his motorcycle. He's not playing basketball. But I tell you this, I believe now with all my heart that if you will pray, you will fast, you will mourn, and you will weep, God will hear your prayer and act on your behalf. I'm not saying you get that miracle. I don't know. That's the greatest miracle I've seen. Changed my life. Changed my life. Changed my prayer life. Because I don't just waste time praying anymore. When I say a 6-second prayer, I mean it. And I think when God knows you mean it and your heart is clean and you do what Nehemiah did, you can go build that wall just like he did. Things can change in your life just like they did in Nehemiah's life, just like I've watched in Joseph's life, like I've watched in a lot of people's lives. And I know that there are people here tonight. I spoke this morning to 1,000 men. And we did an altar call at the end. And almost 600 guys came forward. And it's because I know that life is hard. It's just hard. And I just want you to know, if you'll follow that recipe in Nehemiah, that you will be closer to God than you've ever been before. It's hard and it's difficult. And just like we sing, you have to surrender all and believe that he will do it. But you got to do it. And that's your recipe for the night. So I want to pray for you and then we'll finish up. Father God, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for this gathering. We thank you for the friends that are here. It's fun for me to see the friendly faces that I see every so often when there's a fight that I love so much. We thank you for the senator opening up his house and just allowing there to be a Bible study tonight. How great is that, God? But I ask tonight that if one person heard me, that they'll act on it tonight. That they will get on their knees and they will pray and they will fast and they will weep and they will mourn. And their lives will be changed, I promise, God, because I know what you can do. I've seen it with my own eyes. So don't let that opportunity leave today. If you need to talk to me, you grab me and go, "Mike, I need to talk to you." If you need to send me an email, you need a prayer request, whatever it is, let's get this started tonight where you can let your burden be lifted to God. God, we love you. We do ask for training to continue to go well for the senator, that his body would stay healthy, that he would have supernatural power, and that everything would go just awesome as we move into July 20th. God, we thank you and we love you for all that you do, and that you are a powerful God, a miracle-making God, a supernatural God, and that if we allow your Holy Spirit to join in our hearts, that we can have a supernatural life, a life that we really see miracles, just like we read about in the Bible.
Hello everyone, thank you for watching and listening to Bible study. We'll do this Bible study every week, so thank you for your presence, and God bless you all. May God guide you and give you wisdom, knowledge, and understanding for everything. Thank you, and God bless to all the fans.